Hi everybody, it's Chris from Babylock, and today I'm going to show you how to clear your stitch fingers. And once you see what I'm doing, it will click as to why you really want to start using this when you're sewing. So let's get started. I've actually been stitching one piece of fabric and I'm ready to finish, so I'm just going to continue stitching. And what you'll notice is that when I am done stitching, there are all these stitches, meaning that overlock. I'm using a 4-thread overlock, so those needle threads and the upper and lower looper are wrapped around these fingers. And I want to release them from those fingers so that I can slide my next piece of fabric right up to the needles and get started. And to do that, what I'm going to do is raise that presser foot, and I'm going to take the foot off so that you can see this. Let's take those needles out of that area, and now you can really see everything. I'm going to grab those needle threads and just pull a little bit of slack, and I'm going to do the same thing for that upper and lower looper, pull a little bit of slack, and then all that I'm going to do is simply slide my fabric straight back, and you can see immediately that that stitch is no longer in formation. So what that allows me to do is to take another piece of fabric and literally slide it up to the needles rather than up to the stitches that are formed on those stitch fingers. So let's put that presser foot back on. And then I'm going to pull that slack out of my looper threads. Just make sure those needle threads are behind my guides. Now, this next piece, if I slide this up here, I'm not going to, in a sense, finish that edge properly for my seam allowance. So here's a little trick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little L cut in the very top. And what that does is it allows me to slide that fabric edge up to the needles. Now when I cut in or horizontally into that fabric, I want to make sure it's the seam depth that I'm going to be using. So in other words, if I'm doing a 3/8 inch seam, I only want to go in 3/8 of an inch. Then I'm going to slide up and cut that L. And then all I do is I take this and I slide this directly up to the needles, and you can see that the edge of my fabric is on the right-hand side, or excuse me, left-hand side of that cutting blade. So it's up against that, so it's going to get caught by that overlock stitch, and then I'm just going to continue to stitch the entire length. And when I'm done, you can see there's that top edge and there's that bottom edge, and I was able to start at the needles. So now that we've looked at clearing the stitch fingers on the overlock, let's take a look on the chain and cover stitch. So one of the great things about our combo machines, as I call them, meaning cover, chain, and overlock, is that changing in between or back and forth from overlock to that cover chain is really simple, actually really quick and easy. I've got my machine set up for what we call the triple cover stitch, so I'm using 3 needles in that chain looper thread. And I've just started stitching. I'm going to stitch to the end, and I'm actually going to chain off a little bit. And what you can see is that that stitch is still formed. But what I want to do is take this next piece of fabric and literally take it up to the needles. And I do this in a lot of my projects. So in order to do that, there's a couple steps we have to take. And the first one is we're going to take our hand, place it on the hand wheel, and we're going to bring the needles down into what we call the lowest position. We're going to put our hand back on that hand wheel, and we're going to go in the reverse. The only time you reverse the hand wheel on the serger to bring those needles up to the highest position. And you can kind of see a little bit of slack already in those needle threads. And what that has done is it's released the needle threads from that chain looper, because those needle threads wrap around that chain looper. I'm going to raise my presser foot, and I'm simply going to pull, and you can see immediately that those threads right here, I've got 4 of them, are all released from one another. I no longer have this stitch formation. And what this allows me to do now, I'm just going to clip that thread, is to take this piece of fabric, slide it directly underneath so that my needles are where they need to be for my next action that I'm doing, or the next stitching section I'm doing. Now, where I use this a lot, which is actually my favorite thing, is when I'm in garment construction, if I've made my sleeve and now I have to hem my sleeves. You can't, on a sewing machine, you can go from one piece to the next piece. When you're overlocking, sometimes you can go from one piece to the next piece. But when you're hemming, you can't do that. You literally have to take everything out, put everything back in, right? So this is a great technique for that, and I hope you really start using this. Again, the needles come down by turning that flywheel towards you, down, towards you, and then you're going to go away from you to bring the needles up, and then that will release those threads so that all you can have to do is simply pull and everything is disconnected. That stitch is no longer formed. So try these techniques next time you're making a garment, a tote, a quilt, or whatever project you happen to be working on. See you later, guys. Bye.